century of the dispersion. To Poland, Russia, and across the seas. It was in German that Herzl wrote his classics of Zionism, that the proceedings of the Zionist congresses were held, that standard works on Jewish history and philosophy were written. In other European countries, Jews also settled down and attained positions of honor. But nowhere in recent generations did they display the same devotion and enthusiasm as in Germany. Karl Marx and Ferdinand Lassalle created German socialism, which spread throughout the world. And it was their pupil Edward Bernstein who founded Reformed socialism. When World War I broke out, the German Jewish community flocked to the ranks of the German army with patriotic zeal. The aged philosopher Hermann Cohen stepped down from his university rostrum and called for a supreme effort on behalf of Germany. Fritz Haber devoted himself tirelessly to the scientific effort and invented the synthetic ammonium, which was of such assistance to the German war effort. The German Jewish community was proud of every soldier and officer awarded a medal. After the capitulation, the Jews devoted themselves to the reconstruction of the country. Walter Rathenau, first as Minister of Economic Affairs and later as Foreign Secretary, achieved much on behalf of Germany. Hugo Preuss, the Jewish Minister of the Interior, prepared the draft of the Weimar Constitution, one of the most progressive constitutions in Europe. But all this only served to fire the anger of the Nazis. Rathenau was assassinated by nationalist plotters. The Jewish contribution to Germany was represented by the Nazis as a foreign growth which had to be uprooted. And this became an accepted aim in their campaign of incitement. In terms of the Jewish people, European Jewry on the eve of the Holocaust was the heart of the whole nation, the source of its vitality. The great majority of its spiritual guides and leaders either dwelt there or were of European origin. Here were to be found the great religious scholars, the inheritors of the great Rabbi Elijah of Vilna in the renowned Volozhin Yeshiva. It was here in a suburb of Kovno that the Slobodka Yeshiva was situated, in which the Lithuanian tradition of study was maintained. It was from Europe that Rabbi Kook and the Chafetz Chaim came, that the visionaries of the state, the architects of Jewish nationalism, its leaders, thinkers and writers, emerged. This was the Jewry which in the last generation gave to the nation Herzl and Nordau, Ahad and Pinsker, Bialik, Chernichovsky and Schneer, and Sholem Aleichem, Weizmann, Ben-Gurion and Jabotinsky. It was from here that the daring pioneers set forth in their quest for the promised land, the members of the first and second waves of immigration, who laid the foundations on which the state was ultimately built. From here came the dreamers and the fighters, the molders of the new Jews' way of life, thought and character. Men like A.D. Gordon, Berl Katzenelson, Kurt Blumenfeld, Shmayahu Levin, and many others, whom I will not list here. These millions who were destroyed waited for their state, but were not privileged to see it. It was in these communities which were destroyed that the wonderful Jewish youth movements, imbued with national and social ideals, sprang up in the years between the wars. Their members, burning with faith, pure of body and heart, for whom Zion was their life breath. Ancient, I mentioned only a small number of personalities, and probably escaped many who are worthy of mentioning. Ancient communities were destroyed, of which I shall mention only a few. There was the illustrious Jewry of Amsterdam, shelter of the Spanish Marranos, where Menashe ben Israel dwelt, where Baruch Spinoza lived and wrote. Gone is the Jewry of Prague, with its magnificent synagogue, which had been in existence since the 10th century, the city of the Maharal and the Noda B'Yehuda. The Jewish community of Berlin, the home of Moses Mendelssohn and Israel Hildesheimer, was exterminated. Doom descended on the Jewry of Vienna, with a history going back more than 1,000 years, where Theodor Herzl wrote and worked. Gone forever are the glorious Jewish centers of Poland, headed by the illustrious Warsaw community, the city of Nahum Sokolov, and imbued with culture, the city of Nahum Sokolov and David Frischman. Lvov Jewry has vanished, a great center of Jewish religious scholarship and enlightenment, a focus of Jewish education, cradle of leaders and guides, the city of the Turei HaZahav and the Shir. Even its ancient cemetery, itself a glorious record of Jewish history, was destroyed and is no more. The Jewry of Lodz, city of industry and trade, of Jewish craftsmanship, linked with a rich Hebrew culture, was wiped out. Jewish Vilna is no more. The Jerusalem of Lithuania, the home of the Vilna Gaon, a city full of teaching, wisdom and study, which its Jewish poet described as a city of spirituality and simplicity, a city immersed in contemplation. It was from here that the famous edition of the Talmud was distributed to all Jewish communities throughout the world. The Jewry of Krakow has gone, city of enlightenment and scholarship, bearer of a wonderful tradition and culture, the city of Jews who combined East and West, the city of the Ramah. The Kovno community is no more. It was here that Rabbi Yisrael Salant lived and worked. The Odessa Jewish community was exterminated, the cultural cradle of Bialik, Mendele Mocher Sforim, and Achad Ha'am. Gone is the Kiev Jewish community, which once so proudly confronted the blood libel in the Beilis trial. Gone is the ancient community of Salonika, where Jews had lived for some 2,000 years, the city which gave shelter to the refugees from Spain and Portugal, and in which Jewish scholars and great religious luminaries grew up side by side with Jews, strong of muscle and healthy of body, the city of Rabbi Moshe Al-Mosnino. And gone forever is the Jewry of Bratislava or Pressburg, the zealous guardian of the law and the commandments, the city of the Hatam Sofer. Vanished is the community of Budapest, where Jews probably lived even before the arrival of the Magyars, a city of renown in Jewish life, mother of some of Jewry's greatest luminaries. The Jewish townlet in Eastern and Southern Europe is destroyed. The shtetl, the abode of tens of thousands of Jews, each with its study center and lodging house, a reservoir of scholarship and of love for Israel, where the Jewish spirit was nurtured until the last generation, where the tradition of Jewish family life was preserved in the typical small Jewish houses, which all the winds in the world could not shake, stronghold of Torah and tradition, of yearning for the coming of the Messiah. This too is no more. An entire civilization with a characteristic way of life atmosphere and faith has been destroyed. Landmarks of Jewish history have been obliterated. The heart of the Jewish people has been wounded. Adolf Eichmann knew what he was about. If he should succeed in destroying this Jewry, he would destroy the whole of Jewry. The others, he hoped, would perish or be assimilated. By the mercy of Providence, which preserved a saving remnant, Adolf Eichmann's design was frustrated, and the intention that he cherished was not implemented to the end.
Adolf Eichmann's guilt lies in the planning, initiation, organization and execution of the crimes specified in the indictment. We shall prove his guilt as planner, initiator, organizer and executor of the crime known as the final solution of the Jewish problem, his direct part in the implementation of this criminal program, his role as administrator, director and commander of the operation, as well as the part he played as partner and accomplice in the implementation of the program by others. He was the pivot of the criminal conspiracy to exterminate the Jewish people, wholly or in part, and he was partner to the crimes committed by the SS, the SD, the Gestapo, including the members of the Einsatzgruppen, the security police commanders, senior SS and police officers, their emissaries and branch officers, and all those who were under their command and carried out their instructions in respect of all the acts of murder, plunder, torture, and persecution detailed in the indictment. We shall prove that the accused performed all these deeds with the set purpose of destroying the Jewish people, wholly or in part. We shall prove that his deeds were crimes against the Jewish people, crimes against humanity, and war crimes as defined in the indictment. We shall also prove the offenses committed by the accused against persons of other nationalities. In support of the charge, we shall produce extensive written and oral evidence. May I say immediately that the central archives of the Gestapo, including the archives of Eichmann's department, are not in our possession and have not as yet come to the light of day. But abundant documentary evidence is to be found in the gigantic archives of the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and other ministries of the German Reich, in correspondence between the accused and his partners in crime with the ministries, in the offices of the security police and other official bureaux in German cities, and in the lands conquered by the Nazis. Further, there are documents and reports which have been published by governmental institutions for the documentation and investigation of Nazi crimes, such as those in Poland, France, Holland, Denmark, and Belgium. Much material is available in the minutes of the various courts which tried Nazi war criminals at Nuremberg and in the liberated countries. Documents have also been preserved by various persons, and many of them are in our hands. We shall call witnesses who met Eichmann at the time of these acts, and others who will describe his actions and crimes as they experienced them in their own persons, and will give evidence of what they saw and heard during the period of the Holocaust. The killing of millions of Jews represented the killing off of millions of witnesses. But witnesses still survive, who can report what they saw with their own eyes, heard with their own ears, and suffered in their own persons. To the best of our ability, we shall try to demonstrate to this court in full what Adolf Eichmann did to the Jewish people, But we shall not be able to bring proof as to the fate of each community or the destruction of each Jewish population. This will remain the task of the historian. Accordingly, we shall bring before the court all the evidence at our disposal on the decisions made to carry out the extermination program, the methods by which these decisions were carried out, and the evidence as to the role and responsibility of the accused therein. We shall also submit historical evidence as to the demography of the Jewish people before the Nazis came to power, and the picture of destruction which was unfolded when the smoke of battle lifted at the end of hostilities during the Second World War. We shall also show proof of the various forms of extermination used and the methods employed by the accused to carry out this program in every place in which he operated. We shall then show the fate of a number of Jewish communities, and in the light of the extermination decision on the one hand, and the fact of the Holocaust on the other, we shall request the court to conclude that what will have been established in regard to a number of localities occurred also to the whole house of Israel in conquered Europe. It is beyond our power to give an accurate description of this terrible disaster in all its depth. I am afraid that even after submitting all the material which we have established and all the evidence in our possession, we shall not be able to do more than give a pale reflection of the enormous human and national tragedy which occurred to Jewry in this generation. Adolf Eichmann will enjoy a privilege which he did not accord to even a single one of his victims. He will be able to defend himself before the court. His fate will be decided according to law and according to the evidence, with the burden of proof resting upon the prosecution. And the judges of Israel will pronounce true and righteous judgment.
We shall adjourn court until 3:30 this afternoon. Tomorrow, the eve of the Day of Independence, there will be no afternoon session. Well, did you take the details?